And hello, this is Tom from Tabletop Tap Room. I should have been here tonight with Don from Wizard Tower Games, but he's got some real life business that is just monopolizing his time. So he can't be here, and I'm pitch hitting. I do want to discuss tools that I recommend that I like to steal for my current RPG, and I just have begun using a lot of this stuff well, and then not every single rule fits every single system because I play a D20 system sometimes, and then I play a D100 system sometimes, and I would willingly play in a 2D6 system, looking at you, Cepheus Engine and Traveler. So yeah, but I made a recent purchase tonight, and let's throw this up on the screen here. This is a craft map that I got at the Dollar Tree, and I took a photo because you're not going to see it since it's green, but it's got 1 inch square grid on it, and I thought that it would be just as good as using Professor Dungeon Master's UDT. This is the UDT that I made during COVID with the zone. It's got the Professor Dungeon Master's, zones for handling combat, and I because previously for RPGs I've been using the Chessex Mega Map, where it's double sided, 1 inch hexes, 1 inch square grid. It's about like a 2 foot, 8 inches by almost 4 foot. The only real drawback with this thing is that you can map out, like, say, one cave in the Caves of Chaos, but you cannot map out a full 8.5 by 11 module map on this thing. It's just not big enough. You can draw on it with the dry erase and the grease pencils or watercolor markers per whatever you like to use. But I left dry erase on this one time and it kind of stained the vinyl. Was not happy with that. Oh, hey, there's the good wife, Tammy, who's actually in the same room with me. Love you, babe.
Love you too.
Let me just throw this back up. So yeah, this was at the Dollar Tree, or I don't know if it looks like a brand distributed by Greenbrier International, Volvo Parkway, Chesapeake, Virginia, made in China. $3. So I thought, that's every bit as good as using UDT, the Professor Dungeon Master's UDT. Even though it's square, even though it doesn't have the delineated zones, just for if you were kind of doing theater of the mind for most of it, and then when you had a fight, you slap this down on the table, because this is big, more than big enough to do any single room in a combat, and that's essentially what the Professor Dungeon Master does with his UDT. You're simply doing one single room, it's zoned out. So, close and far, and then just outside of the room type of ranges with those zones. So, it's a nice find at the Dollar Tree when I was running errands today. So today's topic, and Dawn might actually, hey, Fiatus Ashadar Wesh. I struggle with that name, man. I hate to butcher somebody's name. Thanks for coming to the show. And Terry R., greetings. So Dawn is tied up with real life stuff, and I sent him the link for this live stream, and maybe he'll show up. So that was just me spinning the wheels a little bit here at the beginning to see if he does show up in the live stream, and I'll put him on screen and we'll just continue with the show. But moving right along, I have rules that I've come across in RPGs that I just like. I like that rule. I think it's a great rule, and I just started using these things all the time. Doesn't matter what the RPG is, I will port new rules in, and I think I'm not unique in that. I bet you guys do too. So go ahead and spout off in the comments if you've got a rule, or if you've got an opinion about a rule I talk about. But let's start with my number one rule is, well, actually, no, we're going to start with number six. Number six, and now this is a new one. This is new to me using it. I've been aware of it for a while, and then I just watched a video by Questing Beast, and I probably should have sourced the link and put it in the show notes, and I didn't, so I apologize for that. But I think it was Questing Beast was talking about gear slots on the character sheet instead of tracking encumbrance, because when you're tracking encumbrance, whether it's pounds or coins in one of the older versions of D&D, or kilograms if it's Star Frontiers, it's the first thing people ignore. And I like this idea of gear slots, although I think you do have to have one box where you list things that are like no weight, that no weight, no gear slot for that thing. So like a piece of chalk, taking a piece of chalk into the dungeon so you can mark the walls so you don't get lost. You're going into the Minotaur's maze, and you know that the magic there is going to make you get lost. You're going to mark with the chalk to help you find your way out. A piece of chalk in Star Frontiers, it is they have a thing called an Everflame, which is really just a cigarette lighter. And I laugh at this that they put that in the equipment list, the Everflame, and it works for 5 years. This is my cigarette lighter from catering. I don't smoke, but I kept the cigarette lighter to light the sterno. And the Everflame in Star Frontiers, the book description says it lasts, 5 years. I think that's if you're an active smoker, constantly, using it all the time. But if you use it as infrequently as I use it, just to light sterno, it'll last 10, 15. And I got mine for free because somebody who was a smoker smoked in my van, and as punishment, I didn't give him back his lighter. I put it in my pocket, and that was the end of that. I just started. Yeah. Well, yeah. There we go. There we go. She is working. So, yeah, they had matches at work. I'd take a fresh book of matches every time. But once I had the lighter, I just started bringing it. And, and so, and because I don't smoke, and it was my van that I drove all the time, but like 2 days a week, somebody else drove it. If you were a smoker and you smoked, and I was not sweet on you. I did not like you very much. So there should be equipment like that's just NA. There's no weight. That's not a gear slot. A whole list, and there's a bunch in Star Frontiers. Your Chronocom, your ID card. There's a lot of equipment on the equipment list that's an NA for weight. There's no kilograms listed, and I really do like encumbrance. And if you're carrying too much, you got to go. You can't just have this bag of holding backpack that you just carry everything that you find. You've got to make choices. I like for the players to have to make choices about what they're carrying. So if I'm playing, particularly in Star Frontiers, if I'm playing a Dralocite heavy gunner and I'm carrying a heavy machine gun or the heavy laser because I've got really tricked out, I've maxed out my strength. Yeah, I'm going to have the power backpack for the heavy laser. I'm going to be carrying a lot of ammo. I'm just not going to be able to carry too much more before I hit that half my strength in kilograms, and now I'm going to be slowed. I'm going to hit that encumbrance rule. It's a decision that you have to make, and you have to you live with it. So I do like this new idea, and I first encountered gear slots for encumbrance to figure out to track encumbrance You fill these, you're now slowed. You can keep on filling more than that, but you're now moving at half speed. I first encountered that at Five Torches Deep, which is a really elegant version of D&D. It has a very um, it has a very unique the whole encumbrance and what you carry with you and all of that was just done differently, and I just thought that's I like that. I like that a lot. So um, I hadn't done anything with it, but now I'm thinking about adapting it to say Star Frontiers rather than have to track all the kilograms. So that is rule number 6 in the countdown. Rule number 5. Rule number 5 is using some or all of your offensive bonus for defense. Now, that is a HARP rule. It's that comes out of the whole role master, middle role playing by Crown Enterprises family of rules, which are kind of distinctive. They're like a whole thing unto themselves. Uh, HARP is high adventure role playing that they came out with. It's kind of a well, let's simplify Rollmaster. Rollmaster was like AD&D, and then Harp is kind of more like um, a more stripped down, maybe 2E in D&D terms. And in there, you could use, and that's where I encountered it. I have some Harp, some Rollmaster materials, but I never played Rollmaster. But I did play Harp, and high adventure role playing. You could take it was a D100 system, and you could take some of your offensive bonus, and that might be like 40% or 60%, and you could shave off some of that, say 20% towards defense. So that became a penalty for whoever was attacking you. You could go full offensive bonus to defense, so you don't get an attack, but you could go full defense. And so whatever you're doing with your weapon, you're trying to parry the attack that's coming in. And I love that because that was a great way to simulate uh, what was going on with your character. You could be the whole zero parrying the attacks, and then you go in for an opening. I thought that was a great way to do it. Now, it doesn't necessarily translate well to a D20 system, but with like with like like in basic and expert D&D, you just had a table that told you what it was to hit that armor class, and so you would write that on your character sheet and you just roll it. Now, in with the moving away from THAC0, you now get in D20 systems where you have a +6 attack bonus, and the with that, what I would do is I would just let a player say, of my +6 that I have to add to the dice to hit this target, I would let them take 2, 3, whatever they want. They could take the full amount and put it as a penalty on the person attacking them. And so I like this bonus. I like this idea that I stole from Harp because it did simulate that whole you're a master swordsman and you're blocking attacks and stuff. And it might be that the fighter is taking the big bad and he's just defending himself till the wizard can get the fireball going. He's just got a full defense to protect himself. So I see Thyanis is sorry, this will need multiple parts to explain over chat. Okay, part one. I like the concept of adventure backpacks. You spend X amount of money and designate X amount of weight in the backpack, and you need something you choose on a successful you find. Oh, that would be interesting. Part two, you need to be what you needed in the pack, marking off the weight and value out of the pack's total, and track the items separately from that point forward. This abstracts the shopping aspect of the game. Yeah, it does. It does simplify it. Um, I kind of like to know what I got in my backpack ahead of time, but yeah, that definitely would abstract the shopping game because who wants to play? yeah, shopping channel, honestly. Part 3, as not everyone is into that, without getting rid of the expenditure of resources or tracking weight, it allows you to say when the character would know to get X. Yeah, that certainly is a way to have Part 4, if the player, um, even if the player would not, you can designate different types of checks for different types of equipment. Um, yeah, and Five Torches Deep kinda has something like this where you're carrying load, and so you've got some, resources, and so if you've already got, like, rope food on your equipment list, you can go into your excuse me, supply. You can go into you've got so much supply that you're carrying, you can go into your supply and just say, "All right, so much of this more I need more food or I need more torches, so therefore this supply is now becoming the thing that I need." So it's very similar with Five Torches Deep a little bit there. And I think there was rules that you could, like if you're out in the wilderness and you could forage, or you had crafty skill, like you're an archer, you might craft some more arrows, and add that to your supply type of thing. I think there were some rules for that. Never ended up playing Five Torches Deep, but loved it when I read it and went out and bought a copy for my friend. But we didn't end up playing. So so that was the offensive defensive bonus. I like using that, and I just think it gives another option. I like players having a choice. Oh, this creature is really bad. We're all gonna die. I'm gonna use my full offensive bonus on defense, just blocking its attacks, and keep it centered on me while the rest of the party do other things. So I absolutely love that idea that came from Harp, and I believe from Rollmaster. I've not read the Rollmaster rules well enough to know for sure if this, skinning out some of your offensive bonus and applying it to defensive bonus is in there. So that would be number 5. Number 4, I love the roll with advantage and disadvantage for 5e. It's fast, it's quick. Here's what I love about it. Now I know some people are saying that it's very loose and it's very swingy. I know there's been some criticism of it of late, but what I like about it is it's such a simple rule. You can just bring it to the table and you don't have to look anything up. If the player's arguing, "Hey, I should be able to, do this because my character's backstory is an acrobat in circus. And so I should be able to swing from the chandelier and, land on a table and not have a penalty. So, I'm applying a disadvantage there for an advantage. All right, your backstory wipes out the disadvantage. It's very easy. You don't have to go into the rule book. It saves you from going into the rule book to look stuff up, and which is just delay of game, slows down a game. I hate that. Let's just make a dice roll, keep moving. So advantage and disadvantage rule is absolutely great from 5e. Um, Number 3, getting down to number 3, and experience points for travel. This comes from Middle Earth role playing. We have like about 5 different ways you could get experience points. I mean, you got experience points for casting spells. So, like a first level spell would give you 100 experience points, type of thing, and you got experience points for fighting monsters. There's like 5 different things, and it was so that kind of made it a little bit complicated. Like if you did an acrobatic feat during combat, like you swing from the chandelier with a sword and slash the guy. Um, you could do that in Middle Earth role playing. Um, and because that was a moving maneuver and you succeeded at it, you got experience for it. So, depending on what difficulty level the game master assigned to that, so there was a lot to track. But my favorite part of their system, because it was so different from AD&D when it came out, was that um, the experience points for travel. So you got one experience point for every mile you traveled, but that was providing that it was in territory not familiar to you. And the reason why I like this is one is that it gives an incentive to hex crawl. Why are we hex crawling? Why do we care? We don't, you know, there's a built-in incentive and reward for hex crawling, for exploring. Dungeons and Dragons is supposed to be an exploration game. So here's a built-in reward and incentive to get you to try to do that, to do hex crawls, to go and check things out. And so there's a little bit there. So you go into a hex, you don't find anything, you don't do much there. You're still, if it's a 12-mile hex, 12 experience points going towards it. Now I know that a lot of games are switching to milestones, so maybe that doesn't work for you, but that's something I like. I always liked it from Middle Earth role playing. And it's there was what was my other reason? And it makes sense that a well-traveled individual is going to be experienced. Somebody who's well-traveled is experienced. It's just it just makes logical sense. So I like the rule for that reason as well. And particularly in a particularly in a sandbox game, why wouldn't a sandbox game do is give you experience points for travel? It should, because it gives you that reason to go out and engage with the world, with the sandbox that the game master has created. And so I think that's a fabulous rule to use, and I like to use it. Number 2 out of my 6 is careful aim and Star Frontiers. I love this rule in Star Frontiers. Always have for 40 years. I love this rule. In Star Frontiers, you have firearms, weapons that have a high rate of fire. Now, there are some you shoot it once in one combat round. Some you can shoot twice in a combat round, and some you can shoot 3 times. So, that's a stat on those weapons. Rate. See rate, and it'll be 1, 2, or 3. And I think careful aim is great. What you do is you sacrifice all of your extra shots for one carefully aimed shot for a plus 15% bonus on your dice roll. And I think this is great. And I've actually seen somebody climb up on the roof of their police vehicle with their laser rifle, take careful aim, at the maximum range of the laser rifle, and an air car was lifting off with the bad guy, and he took one careful aim shot, and then I let him roll for what the damage would be on the vehicle, and he got the crash and burn results. So it was just one of those things that was just, and he wouldn't have gotten it without the careful aim. So it was just absolutely a beautiful thing to happen in the game. I was kind of rooting for stuff like that to happen in the game. And so I like careful aim. Now, it doesn't translate well to like a D&D game unless you've already got multiple attacks going on for the character. But what I would do in, like, say, a BX game, which is my go-to for just a quick pickup game of D&D, is you can take careful aim for one whole combat round, and then when you fire on the next round, you get a nice bonus. Now, the bonus in Star Frontiers is plus 15%. That works out to a plus 3 in D&D. However, I feel like if you're sacrificing a whole round for careful aim in D&D, it should be like a plus 4. I would just make it a plus 4. So every other round, the archer's taking a carefully aimed shot and getting a plus 4. That's how I would. I've always loved this rule, but again, it gives the player a choice. Am I going to do this or am I going to do that? And I like seeing these choices get played out in the game. So careful aim is my number 2 rule. My number 1 rule that My number one favorite rule is minions, the minions rule from 4E. 4E, the hated edition of Dungeons and Dragons, hated by some, others love it. The minion was this, that minions have one hit point. So if you hit them, they go down. And the reason why I love this rule is that it lets you simulate things like Gandalf and the dwarves doing that run to escape the goblin tunnels in The Hobbit. And so they're running through the tunnels. They hit a goblin, the goblin goes down. It's very cinematic, and so you could simulate that scene in a game, and you would do it with the minions rule. Just one hit, goblins go down, uh, and keep on running. And I love it for that reason. You could also do a Thermopylae type last stand where the players are like, all right, we're gonna put this tree here and this tree. We're gonna just kind of hold kind of, and we're gonna take this horde head on. You know, do a Alamo Thermopylae type last stand. You could do it with it. You have a horde creatures coming at it. Or if you're in a dungeon and you want to do a swarm of rats, just swarm of rats coming down the tunnel at the players. Just make them minions. One hit takes them out. You know, even like skeletons. If the players are high level, just make the skeletons one hit point. Players, plow through them. They're taking on a necromancer or whatever. I love this rule for that because it lets you do these things that I always wanted to be able to do in D&D, but the rules as written, you just could not do. You just could not do those things. So the minions rule, I thought, was one of the great innovations of 4E. Not many things I thought were great from 4E, but that was one of them. I really liked that, and the adventure companion rule that was in the Dungeon Master's Guide. I liked that as well. But the minions rule I thought was absolutely fabulous. Just to, and you've got one of these combats with the big bad, and so the players are taking on the big. So you got like 4 or 5 PCs against the big bad. The big bad's going to go down, but the dynamic changes if he's got a bunch of minions there, and you don't have to track hit points for them. If there's 6 minions there, the players have to deal with them because they're going to get hits that do damage on the players. So you want to take them out, but that's damage not going to the big bad, because what happens is you're not even rolling the dice. You just hit, you take them out. You might have done 6, 8, you might have critted for 16. That is not damage that's going against the big bad. It's being wasted. And I think that's a great tool for the game master to change up those final, climatic fights with the big bad. So the minion rule is great for this. Without bogging down the game too much. Imagine if all right, we need to beef up the big bad, so we're going to have 6 cohort people that he orders. I as game master have to track all those hit points on all those combatants. That's a lot, and it slows down the game, and I just don't need it. So those are my top 6 that I have. Now, I just became aware of a rule in Pathfinder 2, the second edition of Pathfinder, that if you succeed at an attack roll by more than 10 points, it's a crit. And I like that rule. And the way it was explained to me is that you've succeeded by so much, it might as well be a crit, and it can shorten up combat. So particularly if there's a little bit of a power imbalance, and you know that one side is just going to win. It's a foregone conclusion. This helps get the combat over fast. And I'm thinking this is something I'm going to have to try out and see how it works. In combat, and I'm not sure how I would adapt it over to the Star Frontiers T100 system. It's because that's a roll under the target number, but I I certainly like this idea. Although Star Frontiers combat is usually pretty short, anyways. Particularly if you dial your laser up to 10 or higher SEU, um, that if nobody's got an albedo screen in the combat, that's a combat ending fast. and, so I definitely, but for D&D, I definitely like this idea. If you've hit by more than 10 already, um, might as well make it a crit. Max out your damage, do the max damage. But what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So if the players get this, then the big bad gets this also. And so if the big bad, who could conceivably have such an attack bonus that they beat the armor class of the player characters by 10, then they're going to crit on the players. So this could be a very lethal kind of rule to add to your game. It might be too lethal. I mean, if it starts leading to total party kills, maybe it's a rule to drop. But it's something I just heard of from Pathfinder 2E, so I'm kind of interested in actually trying this one out in a game. But definitely, what I'm hot on right now to try after thinking about it for a long time is equipment slots. And just you have X number of equipment slots before you're encumbered, and now you move at half speed. That's definitely on my slate for working into games now. With maybe some modification. If you're a dwarf, you get a 2 extra. If you're an elf, you get 1 less. If you're a hobbit, you get 2 less. If you're human, it's 0 for So we do some accounting for the races, and some accounting if you've got a strength bonus, whatever your strength bonus is, it adds slots. So yeah, that's where I'm going with my equipment, because I absolutely love keeping encumbrance in a game, just for resource management, just to force choices on the players. If there's anything about my list of rules, it's this theme that I like. I like the players to have choices, and look, it's your choice what you do. You wanna carry all that stuff, you can, but you're slowed. And then if other conditions apply to slow you up, now you're at quarter movement. you know, but that's on you. That's not on me. RPG Grandma, it has its place. Which has its place? Encumbrance. I'm assuming that's what you're referring to. You know, some games are all about resource management. Star Frontiers, in particular, is really all about resource management. Although technically, under the original rules as written, grenades didn't weigh anything. So you could, yes, all right, yeah, she meant encumbered. So technically, under Star Frontiers, you could have tricked out your character and just put 50 grenades on. Rules as written. Well, they're NA. The weight is NA. And that led to some rulings like, all right, if you're carrying 6 grenades, it's 1 kilogram. Apply that to your encumbrance, to your total encumbrance, and resource. And again, Star Frontiers is all about resource management. How much power do you have? How much power do you have available? Are you able to operate these weapons? Um, if you start buying defensive screens, which can cost 3,000 credits in game. That's a little pricey. So you're not starting out with them as a beginning character. But you start getting an expensive defensive screen. Those are power hogs, particularly the albedo screen. If somebody's got their laser dialed up to a high setting, and if you're dialing a laser up to a high setting, then your opponents are also likely, in my game, to be dialing up their lasers to high settings. It's good for the goose is good for the gander. It should just go around for everybody. And so that's, but I love choices, anything that forces choices on the players. I'm going to do this instead of that because those things have consequences. And I love when player choice, the choice that you made has a major impact on the game. Like Fred Cobber getting on the roof of that police vehicle with his laser rifle and taking one carefully aimed shot. That was his choice. He could have fired 2 shots with that laser.
Super lucky. I'm just saying.
Hey, the gods of the dice smiled on him that day, and he got that shot and shot that air car out of the sky, and it crashed and burned. And I mean, it was just, and then you guys were joking about it fell out of the sky and landed on a school field trip.
Yeah, okay. Listen, we digress. We did.
Who were there to see puppies. Okay. So the puppies and the kids were killed. Burning crash of the air car. So, and that just led to a lot of laughter in the game. And to me, as a game master, that was just gold. I loved it, and I loved that player choice had such a major effect on the game. And so I very much love that. And if somebody just wanted to say, you know what, I want to use my offensive bonus towards defense, because otherwise this ogre will slaughter us all. And so you've got a +5 towards your attack, and you're now shifting that as a penalty towards that ogre's attack, and he keeps missing you because you're blocking his hits, his attacks. That's cool games. That's cool gameplay. That is just cool stuff that leads to interesting story within the game, and it becomes legendary. Remember that time when he tanked that ogre and he blocked all the shots, or he tanked that dragon and he just full on defensive, and he gave the thief a chance to sneak around behind and use his backstab for the 4 times damage. That becomes cool story, and legendary stuff that ends up in your gameplay. So, those are the rules I like to bring in. I just like things that bring in choice. I like to encourage player choice and player input. In fact, if you've played in some of my games, I've done things where it's like, create an NPC that may or may not help you. You write the NPC, tell me how you know them, and that NPC becomes part of my setting. And so you have a contact, so something's going on, and you're like, I know a guy, and you could create somebody who's just a merchant. And so you go to the merchant, hey, we're looking to find this rare thing. And he's, oh, yeah, I heard. So I'm now using the NPC you created, and I'm saying, oh, yeah, I heard that's being sold over in this town. So he gives you a lead, or it might be I saw a player who needed a weapon, and he went to his NPC contact and did a little role play, and I felt, I did a little dice roll based off the role play, and that NPC gave this player a weapon to use, and so different ways that could be used, that NPC contact. So I like players to have input to the game. I've had players write a secret about your character that only you know, and I know. You're free to share the secret with the other player characters, but at the start of the game, you and I know it, and so I just keep that in a little card and hold it in reserve, and it might come into play in game as a plot hook somehow. I might, it might be that you killed somebody over there, and now some investigators come from that place, and they're, hey, I'm looking for so-and-so. I heard he was around here. That's a problem. I don't know what this guy's looking for my character for, but it's probably not good. So, I like players to have input into the game and into the game world, to their actions to matter in the game world. And I think that's a good way to game master. But that's just me. So we don't have a lot of chat going on, and that's probably because Don got tied up all day with a real world issue, so we didn't get a chance early enough in the day to set up the live stream and get it advertised. And I actually only set this up at 7 o'clock when we go on the air at 8. And he still hasn't popped into the live stream for me to put him up on screen. So I'm thinking um, I think he is just with this, real world issue just slammed and tied up. And that's okay because, I'm here. I got his back. I covered the show, and I think we've pretty much covered it in 40 minutes. That's a good amount of time. I think I'm going to call it and wrap it up here. Thanks for coming by and checking out the live stream. Again, sorry Don couldn't be here from Wizard Tower Games, but he'll be back next week on Tuesday. We're doing this kind of as like a co-hosting thing on the advice of Eric Tenkar. Really appreciate his mentorship and advice to us. Check out Wizard Tower Games. Check out Eric Tenkar at Tenkar's Tavern. Even check out Professor Dungeon Master and his UDT. You Google that. If you search for that on his channel, he's got several videos about the UDT. I think it is fabulous. And, oops. Add stage. There we go. I just bought this craft mat. I thought, that'll work just as good as the UDT, particularly if I don't wish to do the zone combat and I actually want to just draw out on this mat and dry erase the building. Or, I got a couple of miniature door terrain pieces I made, a couple of little L shapes to mark out the corners. You can just slap this down. For the most part, you're doing theater of the mind for your adventure, and you just slap this down, and you don't need a big map, big chess etch map, because these things are big. They take up most of the center of a dining room table. And this thing's just as good, I think, and it was $3 at the Dollar Tree. So again, this is Tom from Tabletop Tap Room. Enough gas bagging. Thanks for coming by and checking out the video. If you've got a rule that you really like and you think should be sold, put it in the comments below. I would be interested in that. And as always, keep on gaming.